Cynthia, I mean, you are one of the courageous individuals that you put your life in danger when you went to Palestine, you went to Libya. Our heart, when we were hearing your boat were stopped by Israeli Zionists, our heart were completely stopped, you know. What's going to happen to you? What is happening around the world, as you mentioned, and Johnny, that's something that everybody knows. But people, they don't see what's the foreign policy of United States is reflection of what's happening in the United States.
Yes.
In every 36 hours, they are killing a black people in this country. 395 people in the last 3 months are being killed on the street of US. We spend $2.2 million a minute on military.
Yes.
On military, 1 hour of that money could have, you know, saved the whole world. It's happening here. The other day in Inglewood, a guy that he could not pay his rent, he burned himself in his house. I mean, 4,000 people are being evicted in their house every day in California. What kind of system is that?
That's right.
So we have to worry about those individuals like you that stand up and say no more, stop it now. We have to think about Abu Jamal, Leonard Peltier,
Yes.
Bradley Manning, all these people that are in jail fighting for us. Please, you know, everybody, when we go out, we have to spread what she says and what Johnny says. People should be aware. Please, let's, you know, defend Bradley Manning, Abu Jamal, Leonard Peltier, Lynn Stewart, all these individuals that is standing up, you know, to fight for a better world. I thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello, Ms. McKinney. As you know, the French government, the new president, is following the Sarkozy's policy against Syria, and he become as dangerous as him. So, he has to be exposed, and I guess the French has to be, French Republic is like a banana republic, has to be also. And it's not much in the news here. And the French are backstabbing everybody. And Iranian nuclear energy program, and you know what they don't act like in a civilized way. Thank you.
I don't think I can add anything to that. I think at this point we shouldn't be surprised at people voted for Hollande thinking that he was a true socialist, but, please, What we have to understand is that we can't believe anything they say to us anymore. We've got to hone in and develop our skills of critical analysis and to really stop and think before we absorb what they say to and about us.
Thanks, thank you for your time. I would like to return back to the new policy for to achieve the great Israel by rolling over 6 countries. And we know that this is was long ago one of the concepts for the Israeli to achieve that. And Egypt was one of the most important country, or one of the main stone or keystone to prevent that, especially during Nasser era, last century. So from your point of view, why they skipped Egypt from these 6 countries' policy?
Why was Egypt not a target of the 7?
Yeah.
Well, I came across something really interesting. And I think it flows from some experience that I had with the Rwandan genocide. And the CIA had made an estimate of the number of people who would be killed if the U.S. government's policy of regime change in Rwanda would move forward. Now, most of the people in the world believe that Hutus and Tutsis don't like each other, and so therefore, you know, 1 million people were killed in what has become known as the Rwanda genocide. But the fact is that there was a regime change plan put in place, it was carried out, and 1 million people died. So it was 500,000 more than they estimated. Big deal. At least that's the way some people think. So now, what would be the motivation for Syria to find itself in this predicament as well? And it seems to me that Syria is where it is now because, as I have said before, we have these people inside the government who are able to exercise pull the levers and say, okay, this is where we're going to go and this is why we're going to do it. And Egypt, these people do these studies, and this is what I came across that was so shocking. There is a study, these futurists do these studies about the amount of turmoil that can be expected if a certain course of action takes place. And so if Egypt is in turmoil, and they say that if the policy is to implement, to shake things up, which we know that that's the policy, shake things up, that Egypt will be in turmoil from 7 to 12 years. So that's one way of doing what needs to be done, and you don't even really kill anybody. But you keep Egypt in turmoil for 7 to 12 years, and then whatever it is that the people really want, they're so busy fighting each other that they can't move forward together. So just imagine that everything is not really as it might appear. And so this dissension, Egypt is not there, but Egypt is there. Egypt's on the list. It just didn't happen with bombs and missiles and depleted uranium. But Egypt is on the list because Egypt is no longer a part of the calculation. Now, I just happen to have been in Egypt a few years ago when the transition was being discussed. And at that time, those of you, I know you all know it probably better than me, that Mubarak was trying to move his son into leadership, and Mubarak had cancer, and so believe me, that folks inside the United States government understood what was about to happen in Egypt. And heaven forbid that there be a democratic change of leadership there. So you allow National Endowment for Democracy to come in. They do what they do best. You allow young people to be trained in Facebook and Twitter, and then they go off and do what they do best. And the legitimate hopes and aspirations of the people, believe me, that should have been cause for a revolution, because the causes were all there. The need for a change was all there. But what happened was that you had these other forces that had already been pre-positioned to make war on the Egyptian people without the, how can I say, still struggling for self-determination. The Egyptian people will still be struggling for self-determination. And in the meantime, very little has changed in terms of the outward policy.
Cynthia is exactly right on that. They've taken them out of the equation, and you don't necessarily have to have a war to take people out. They're too. The reason why they create depressions and recessions like they do, which is done by printing more money or retracting the money, is so people are too busy looking for food and shelter, they don't have time to fight the government. That's exactly what they've done in the United States. Everyone's running around, you know, you drive down the 105 freeway where the train is, see people at 10, 11 o'clock at night. They spend 6 hours a day, the people don't have cars, going to work. They go home, have some food, go to sleep, go to work again. You're too busy, and that's what they've done with Egypt. They took them off the market, they've engineered, they're beyond good at engineering these type of things, and now they're not a force to be reckoned with. They're nullified.
The thing that, and then I'm going to say something about this marvelous piece of art, but the thing that amazes me is, one, how people don't learn from the previous experience, because it's clear to me that if they would lie 935 times to have a war against the people of Iraq, that they'll lie 936 times to have the next war. And so, while I'm not Iraqi, but I understand the motivation and the movement of the war machine, I have to oppose what they did in Iraq. And so, when I see the same lies, the same template being utilized against the people of Libya, now the people of Libya are having deformed children just like the people in Iraq because of the use of the depleted uranium. But now here's the next thing, is that I've been told by those people who go, the scientists, who go into these war areas and they examine the bodies of the victims, and they can tell that new experimental weapons are being used. They also can tell from the health effects what kind of weaponry is being used, that it's not depleted uranium any longer, it's live uranium. And so the countries are going to be radioactive for the next generation and the generation after that. So they are literally destroying not only the land and the ability to grow food on the land, but they're destroying the genetic makeup of the individuals who are on the land. And that is the nature of war, of the wars that are being carried out. Now, with that having been said, what we have to do, what shocked me, was that there were people, there were Libyans, there were even Palestinians who applauded the use of these weapons in Libya. How can anybody applaud the use of weapons that are killing innocent people every day and that will be there for the rest of their lives and the lives of the children too? And so I am probably going to be disappointed if I hear that there are Syrians who are applauding what is happening in Syria right now. Because then that is truly very sad. Because as many grievances as I have, and I think my grievances against the government of the United States are legitimate, but as many grievances as I have against this government, I would never invite Iran or for that matter, Britain or France or whoever, to come over here and bomb people. I would never do that. Now, this beautiful piece of art here is going to be auctioned off, right? And so there are expenses that Arab Americans for Syria has incurred, and we want to make sure that you all stay so that someone can take this beautiful piece of art home.
Yes. One final question, I guess, from what has been said in this room today, and from what the other powers on the ground in the region stand, and from your own perspective, how do you see the end in Syria, and how soon or how long is it going to take, and how is it going to resolve? Thank you.
Well, it's a very sad question for me to have to answer, because we haven't had very much success at stopping the war machine. I know that people in Iraq thought that they had a grievance against Saddam Hussein. But I have read and I have heard from people who have been victimized by what has happened there now, that they would much rather see those days revisited than what they have there now in Iraq. And if we look at Afghanistan, with the fig leaf of Hamid Karzai, he's so handsome when he puts the regal robe on, and he looks so officious. But he doesn't represent anybody except NATO and, the people who put him in. And in Pakistan, the Pakistanis, I visited an African community in Pakistan, and those people loved Benazir Bhutto. But I think there was one unifying political view, and that was they didn't like her husband very much. And that was across the board. So Benazir gets killed, and her husband ends up as the prime minister. Well, the president, I think, has a little less power, so that's when they shifted him over, but head of state. And if we go country by country, by country, by country, I heard from some Yemenis, and they told me that really all they wanted was unification about North and South Korea. They wanted a united country, and they wanted everybody to be able to share in the decision making. And what they never expected was that they were going to end up with these drones and and all over the African continent, the United States has built these drone bases. And so the bombing takes place. They're bombing in Libya. They're bombing in Somalia. They have sent 3,000 more troops in to, they say that France is getting ready for Mali. The bottom line is that this military capacity, we've got leadership now that's willing to use it. And they will use every aspect of what they have. When I was in Libya, or when we were in Libya, the the buildings literally shook. Great big, huge, cement-built buildings, shaking, the ground is shaking. And we know that there's been a discussion about putting nuclear tips on the bunker buster missiles. And so I'm absolutely certain that they were using bunker busters. We know they used depleted uranium. They might have been using uranium there, that's what I've been told. And so the prospects for Syria are not good. Because by hook or by crook, they will go and they will keep going until enough of us have come together and said, we're not going to let you go any longer. That's the only thing that will stop them. We have to stop them. And I do believe that we have the power still to stop them. But as Reza pointed out, if they incarcerate all the black men and kill all the black boys, who's going to be left to stop them? This is what's happening literally inside this country. The will to stop them is being attacked. And of course, your right to know is being attacked. And they won't stop at Syria because Syria is just a checkpoint before you get to Iran. But by neutralizing Syria and by neutralizing Turkey, oh, it would be the best of all possible worlds if they can get something going between the two of you guys. Of course, please don't let Turkey invoke the NATO defense of one is defense of all, the treaty. And so we have to understand, that's why I started out talking about Syria is just a checkpoint. It's the checkpoint on the way to Iran. But Iran is just a checkpoint. It's a checkpoint on the way to the greater Israel. And then after that, who knows? Russia and China are definitely on the block too. So it won't stop because these people don't know how to stop. They keep going. They will keep going until we recreate what happened in 1968, recreate 68, when the people of the United States said no to the Vietnam War, and they said it so strongly, so united